那小飞是我们的 iToken 的 Director of Business Department。那我们现在有请小飞 ，OK 吗？小飞
OK 好，大家好。这里写的是中文，但是我想，不过我想说英文。All right, the talk for today will be about Tokenlon, which is the decentralized exchange within imToken app. In the agenda, the talk is marked as beginner, so I will try to explain all the basic concepts. But if you have questions, we will have time for Q&A after the talk. So, regarding Tokenlon, Tokenlon is the exchange, and there is some story behind our iterations of how we developed this exchange in the last year, what we actually learned from our users. I hope you can take away something from this. So I will talk about this from the past. I will talk about where we are today, like how Tokenlon looks like today, what we changed, and I will give a brief overview of what we plan to do in the future. As for a little bit of context, speaking about Tokenlon, so as I said, Tokenlon is part of imToken, of the wallet app. imToken, most of you probably heard about it, is a non-custodial wallet app. We started 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago, in China as an Ethereum wallet, a non-custodial wallet. And non-custodial, again, means the user, so you yourself, is the only one in control of the wallet. So you can, in imToken case, back up your seed phrase on a piece of paper, for example. If your phone gets destroyed, then you still have your backup phrase and can start again by downloading imToken or use another wallet. What you can see here is imToken. You enter imToken, and that's actually the new version we introduced last year. The new version not only includes Ethereum, but also Bitcoin and some other blockchains. There's going to be more in the future. And it includes ERC20 tokens. It also includes NFT tokens like CryptoKitties, for example. And it includes a dApp browser. So if you know somebody or if you're a developer of a decentralized application, please let me know. We always try to help to get more users on interesting decentralized applications, such as MakerDAO, Kyber Network, right? And last but not least, the Tokenlon exchange. And that's pretty much the latest version. So the screenshot is from today, the latest iteration on our Tokenlon exchange. And what I said earlier today, the IMKey hardware wallet, which is basically a Bluetooth hardware wallet you can use with imToken, and it's pretty small. So that's this one. As for Tokenlon, there is some story behind Tokenlon. So we started to integrate this like native exchange feature last year. Last year was the first time we released it. And we started with having it based on Kyber Network and 0x protocol in a way that it was 2 interfaces. So what you can see on the right is basically one interface for Kyber Network, the blue one, and one for 0x exchange. And for those of you who don't know exactly what Kyber Network is, the Kyber Network is basically a decentralized exchange, something like a decentralized shapeshift. So you basically have 2 tokens. You say, I want to exchange Ether to DAI, for example. You pick an amount of a token, and you get the best price that Kyber offers at this point in time, and you say, I want to trade, or I don't want to trade. After trading, you basically get a price that's very similar to what they suggested when you clicked, I want to trade. 0x is a little bit different. So 0x gives you the ability to also trade to the current price that's available, but it also gives you the ability to use limit orders. And limit orders is basically not I want to trade right now to the best price, but I want to trade this amount to a better price in the future, right? I want to buy or sell to a better price. And this makes this order book, right? That's what we integrated, the order book. But with the order book, there was some problems. And we looked at it for a couple of months, and we found actually there's pretty low liquidity on 0x. So 0x has this idea, and it's improving a lot, and we're still building on 0x, to that later. But 0x has this idea of sharing liquidity between different exchanges, right? Every exchange that builds on 0x can share their order book. So if you trade on the old version of Tokenlon, you would be able to see trades that somebody else did or offers on another exchange, and the other way around. But still, there was not a lot of liquidity. And there's different reasons for this. One of which may be that at this point, you had to exchange to WETH, the wrapped Ether token, before you actually were able to trade on 0x. And there were front-running issues, which means, and I will get into details about this later, but which means that that your trade maybe fails or you get a worse price. So in the end, what people did actually use was the Kyber feature. And the Kyber feature, probably because it's way easier, right? You only have 2 tokens, you click exchange, and that's it. You get a price estimation, and your final price is very similar to the price that's estimated, which means you don't get exactly the price that they show you. What we actually learned from this and what we did as a result is basically what you see on this slide. That's basically the exchange, how it looks like right now. And there's 2 main points for me personally, what we changed on Tokenlon. One is basically make it easier to use. And being easier to use means still using 0x, but now we built the swap feature that Kyber actually offers ourselves on 0x. And we are hiding the WETH complexity. More on that later. And second, unlike Kyber, where you don't get the price that they suggest in the first place before you trade, in Tokenlon we made the technical side in a way that you actually can see the final price before you enter the exchange, before you enter the trade, before you click I want to trade. That also means there can't be front running. More on that, the technical details right now. That's a general overview, but again, we tag this as beginner talk, so I want to go through it slowly in the next few slides. But that's the general overview how Tokenlon looks like from a technical perspective. And there's basically 2 areas. The upper part I tagged with off-chain is basically the communication of a set of market makers and the user. And market makers are basically the people or companies that give you a price. When you enter the app, you enter a price, and those people that you trade with are the market makers. There's a set of market makers. There can be a set of market makers that give you a different price for one trade, and Tokenlon automatically takes the best price out of that set of market makers. On-chain then, after the price is set, the only thing that basically happens is the trade is finished, the trade is settled. So both tokens on both sides get exchanged. Now, how does it work technically? There's basically several steps that I want to walk you through. And the first step is basically before I do any exchange in ERC20 tokens, I want to set an allowance. Now, that's kind of special. That's something we introduced in a specific way. The first part is you only do this when you trade ERC20 tokens to ERC20 or ERC20 tokens to Ether. You don't need to do this when you trade Ether to any ERC20 token. But it gives you one big plus point, which is it eliminates front running. Now, okay, what does it mean? So let's start with the user proxy. The user proxy is basically a contract that lives on Ethereum, and that's one contract that every user on Tokenlon uses to trade. It's basically not the user trading on 0x protocol. It's the user proxy that trades. So in the 0x protocol, there's for every trade defined who the two parties are, the maker and the taker. And the taker, the person that accepts the trade, is, in our case, in Tokenlon case, always the user proxy, which means that in the older version of our 0x implementation, there were people who could say, I'm the taker, but in this version, it's always the same taker. That's called front running, but let's look into what front running exactly is. I think then it will get clearer. I actually took that picture from a 0x blog post. If you search for 0x and front running, you will find a pretty nice blog post explaining it for pretty length, what front running is and what kind of different kind of collisions and front running models you have. But the very basic idea is basically, there's somebody who wants to make a trade. Let's say I want to make a trade on Tokenlon, on the old version of Tokenlon at least. I'm the taker, right? I want to make a trade on 0x. Now, this trade is already finished. I said I want to trade 1 ether to 200 DAI. There's another party who wants to send me the DAI, who wants to take the ether. Everything is finished, and we published this to the Ethereum blockchain. Now, on the Ethereum blockchain, this transaction must first go to the mempool, right? To the Ethereum pending transactions pool, which means there's a short time, at least some seconds until the transaction gets accepted into a block, that somebody else can see, oh, there is this specific trade, and could front run the trade. That means somebody could take advantage by seeing this trade and either block your trade or get a better price by taking exactly this trade. How would the frontrunner do this, and what would he get out of this? The frontrunner would basically do exactly the same transaction and set a higher gas price. The transaction would be inserted or mined by Ethereum miners earlier, and your trade would be invalid. What does the frontrunner get out of it? Well, either he gets exactly the trade that you wanted to do, and he gets a good price, because maybe he knows that you are an expert and you know what a good price is, so he sees it and takes this good price, or he actually takes your price and offers you another price if he's in a position to offer you another trade, maybe at exactly the same point in time, and you actually get a worse price in exactly the same trade, and he gets a better price, or maybe the spread between the two trades of yours. So again, we eliminate this front running, at least this specific kind of front running in this case, by saying not Philipp is the trader in this case, Philipp's address, but always the user proxy contract. It's always the same address, and the only thing I need to do is set an allowance to this address. So there is nobody from the outside of Tokenlon who can front run and say, I want to take this trade. And in the next step, let's say I open the app, I put in some amount in Tokenlon, I put in what specific tokens I want to trade, and as soon as I do that, I get some price for this trading pair. I want to trade 1 ether to 200 DAI, I get a specific price, right? I get this specific price every second, it updates, and it's off-chain. But it is already assigned order. That means the order that the market maker sends me already says, this trade is exactly for this user, and the signed order is already an order that can be accepted by the 0x smart contract. So in the third step, when the user actually clicks on trade, he already knows that this price that he actually saw, and remember Kyber, where it's not certain that you get the price that you see. In Tokenlon, you know, because the market maker already signs this order, that this order with exactly this price will be settled on-chain on the 0x smart contract. Now, that actually means that there's another special case of front running that can't happen. There's basically nobody inside of Tokenlon that can take exactly this order to exactly this price for this trade, because it's specified that you, like the one user with a user ID, can only take this trade. And that also means that as soon as you click on trade, you know the trade will be finished. The trade will be settled on chain with a super high certainty. From experience from the last couple of months that we have been running Tokenlon, I think there was like one case where the trade didn't went through because of some network error. But there's literally like no case where somebody front runs because it's impossible. And it's not impossible on Kyber. And it actually happens on Kyber and the old ZeroX implementation. And again, because the user proxy is the trader, in our case, is the taker in ZeroX terminology, he can also do the WETH wrapping. So if I trade Ether to some other token, I don't need to wrap Ether first. I don't need to exchange to WETH or lock Ether in the WETH smart contract. But I just send Ether, and the rest happens within the user proxy smart contract. And the last point, we actually pay for your ERC20 transaction cost. So remember, you set an allowance for the ERC20 contract. That means we can actually pay for the transaction that sends the ERC20 when you sell an ERC20 token. Now what's next? There's a roadmap for Tokenlon, there's a roadmap for imToken, and there's a couple of ideas that we have. You saw how Tokenlon looks like right now, and this is some topics that will come in the future, maybe already in the very near future. And one of which is IMBTC. IMBTC is the idea of building some product based on what our experience tells us what our users actually want. And what they actually want is receiving some income. And why not lock BTC to receive some income on your BTC, on your Bitcoin? As I told, like since over a year already, imToken is also Bitcoin wallet, so we have users that have Bitcoin, right? And you can trade on Tokenlon. So why not finance a income on your locked BTC via Tokenlon trading fees? This is the bigger idea. Stay tuned, there will be maybe an announcement soon. Another few ideas for Tokenlon in the future is, of course, opening Tokenlon. As I said, Tokenlon right now is kind of this closed system. You can trade on Tokenlon and imToken in your wallet, but of course the idea is that more people, or at least people outside of imToken, can use Tokenlon for trading. Why is this interesting? Of course, for us it's interesting because we can get more users, but there has been happening a lot of changes recently to the DEX space. If you look at the numbers of what DEXs are actually used, it changes a lot. And then there were some new parties introduced in the last half year in the DEX space. And those parties are actually aggregators. There is, I think Mel talked about it yesterday, 1inch Exchange and Total and DEX.ag. There's different players that actually aggregate decentralized exchanges. And of course, what we want to do is we want to aggregate exchanges as well. We want to give our users the best price, which we are pretty close to, or certainly are sometimes, at giving the best price. But if you are able to aggregate all the prices over all decentralized exchanges, you can give the user still the security of a decentralized exchange, right? Being certain that the trade will happen and non-custodialship, while having always a super good price and liquidity. Now, that means we plan to integrate more exchanges as market makers on one end. And on the other end, of course, we also want to open the API at some point to Tokenlon so that other people can trade from outside of Tokenlon. And that also means building a front end, a desktop front end for using Tokenlon on a web app. You could call it Tokenlon Deb. Now CRX version 3, CRX protocol that we are using for settlement basically, is also going to introduce a lot of changes in a version 3. Right now, it's version 2 of CRX protocol. They're also going to introduce a lot of changes which we are anticipating, and part of which are about staking, part of which are about aggregating, for example. Okay, the video doesn't load, but I'm prepared. Now, let's just walk through really quickly how it actually looks like. Now, I opened I'm Token, and this is the Tokenlon exchange. Get some small introduction. And after the introduction, you will be able to trade. There's currently a small fee on Tokenlon. And this is the current interface, right? So you pick and choose which tokens you want to trade. You insert the amount you want to trade. And as soon as you insert the amount, you get a price, right? And you can also see it compares to Huobi and other exchanges so that you can see that you actually get a good price or the best. Use your fingerprint or Face ID, and then it will be submitted on the chain. Now you basically already know it's still pending. It's not being mined yet. It is being mined yet. It hasn't been mined yet, but you know that for certain you will get this price. So this already concludes my talk. We do, I think, still have some time for questions.
Yes, we can conduct Q&A section right now. Do you have any questions from the audience? Gentleman at the back.
Hello. I'm a little bit confused about how do you prevent the front running by DEX, because you mentioned that you have to sign the maker's order. I think that if you make the maker to sign the order, that means if you settle a maker order and you have to wait. If someone takes your order, then you have to give further information like signatures. So I'm a little bit confused how to achieve this.
I didn't really understand the last part. If a maker does...
Or can you explain again how do you achieve the preventing the DEX to perform from running?
Well, what I mean by DEX performing front running is basically the DEX, for example, a 0x relayer would 0x exchange would see there is this trade happening even before it's in the mempool of Ethereum, right? And they would insert a trade that front runs the other trade, right? In Tokenlon, that can't happen because the market maker defines a user, and only this user will be able to. This trade is already for this user. This user's token balance will be deducted, and this user will get a token in return, right? So the DEX won't be able to say, I'm another user, and I will do exactly the same trade.
Because who performs the matching? Is the matching engine by Tokenlon, or is every order have to be placed onto the chain? Because it seems that the order should be signed and just sent to the Tokenlon, and the matching will be performed by your system, right?
Is it a question? Matching. So it's a request for quotation, right? And the market maker already signs the order that will be settled on chain, right? Defining who is going to be both parties. One is themselves, the market maker, and one is the other party. The only thing that Tokenlon then does is basically uses this, forwards this transaction to the chain, right? And then the 0x contract basically uses this information to settle the trade, which means perform the atomic swap. Does it make sense?
So Tokenlon is just a relayer to send a settled order?
Yeah. If you say Tokenlon, the Tokenlon backend, right? You could also say, of course, the user proxy is also part of Tokenlon, right? But yeah, I think that makes sense in your context.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for the audience? 那我们会中还有什么问题吗？针对这个议题？
还有问题吗？ Yes.
Finny，麻烦一下。
Hello. I'm just wondering how much does it cost for Tokenlon to support free ERC20's exchange? Because you pay the gas fees for the users, so how much it normally cost for as an organization to do this?
Yeah. How much do we pay in gas cost for one ERC20 trade? I'm not completely sure. Something.
Daily or weekly?
Oh, I'm not sure. That probably changes a lot. I think I would be safer to talk about the gas cost, right? And that's probably something around 100,000, maybe more. I had some graphic on the gas cost for different exchanges was between 50,000 and 200,000, I think. So yeah, let's talk about it afterwards. Then I can talk about exact numbers. But yeah, I think the only cost is basically the gas cost, right? Pretty much. There's some to the back end, but yeah. You should see it on chain as well, right? Let's talk about it afterwards.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, one last question.
So I want to know what's the business model and how to make money from Token.
There's a fee, right? So there's a 0.3% fee right now that you pay on a trade.
Okay, so that the fee is enough to pay for the user to transfer the token for free.
Yeah. So I would need to think about it. The fee, of course, we only pay the fee for ERC20 transactions, right? But this should be, the fee is always the same for ERC20 transactions, no matter what the amount is of tokens, right? So if somebody trades like 1 million DAI, right, then the 0.3% is a lot compared to the gas cost. If somebody only trades like 100 DAI, then it's different. It pays right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we actually do have a little bit of time for one last question. Anybody? 还有人有任何的疑问吗？那如果没有任何的疑问的话呢，那我们就欢迎下一位讲者。那我们再次感谢我们的小飞。Thank you very much for your sharing.
Thanks.